The wheel pop up. Right, I'd like to welcome everybody out. My microphone's not working, so I'm gonna try to project as best as I can. First of all, we have two members of the planning commission. They are both expected to be here. One will be remote. Gary will be remote. Marty is stuck in traffic. He'll be here hopefully in the next few minutes, but just so everyone's aware. So we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll start off with the planning commissioner, and we'll see, give us the pledge of allegiance.
All right, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item on the agenda is public comment. So just a reminder, if you have some comments, please be respectful. Please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Also, please state your name and address. Address can just be cited this way. Make sure you direct your comments to the entire commission, and just note that we will not be responding back to you. If you have a comment on items 4, 5, or 6, so those are the Castle Cove and the Dygert parking. Thank you. If you have those, you can hold your comments until we get to that specific agenda item. If you'd like, otherwise you can use public comment as well. So we'll open up for anybody who'd like to just say a few words.
Paul Stern, South River City. My public comments and questions are for agenda item 7, packet pages 38 to 79 of 79. Please note, my presentation today will be in the form of questions, comments, and then below that are copies out of the packet itself of the topic areas from what I'm discussing. Number 1, this is about the Lost Project. How can this be final plat with all of the missing and confusing information? Is that better? Okay, I'll mute it. Question 2. On the leasing language for the lost rental units, page 40 of 79. When does the lease clock start after the final certificate of occupancy. B, the extenuating circumstances mentioned need to be clearly identified, or else everything goes. How can rental percentages be enforced? It appears that if one lot is not built upon, then the percentage of 450 to 25% does not start. How long are the leases on these rental properties? Number 3, how can the architectural review be considered as being complete when the planning commission has not seen the architectural plan for this development and yet to be considered as a final subdivision plat? The only thing provided is a similar project that the developer done. There's no guarantee that it would be the same. Number 4, who is the actual developer for this project? 2 developers are listed in the packet, one from Wixon, Michigan, and the other one from North Salt Lake. And I'm referencing pages 50 and 70. Number 5, what is the actual legal title for the canal company to be used in this document? A letter must be from a legal entity such as DWCCC, not DWC. There is no such entity as DWC that can enter into an agreement. DWC should not be used to describe any area of responsibility or action. Selectively eliminate the term DWC throughout the document for clarity and assignment of responsibility where it's not appropriate. Number 6, there is a real mashup between the terms HOA, developer, and owner, and their relationship is undefined. When will these terms and the relationship be defined? And the reference pages are in there and the quoted text. I also have an appendix here. A1, how can the stated unknown of some of the initial phases be contained in a final plat approval? If something's unknown, we have no idea what it means. This has to do with the density. When does this happen and by whom? This seems to be in conflict with the new R5 zone with a bonus up to 8 units per acre. A3, where did the 38 feet come from? I believe that everywhere else in South Weaver City, according to South Weaver Code, the maximum is 35 feet. And A4, how is the developer bypassing the standard length of driveway by just saying that it will not fit? That's no excuse. This developer has been given more waivers to South Weaver Code than any other of which I'm aware. Thank you.
Let's go.
Okay. I'm not seeing anybody else. We'll move on to item number 3, approval of consent agenda. Are there any corrections needed from my fellow commissioners?
No, I got one.
Shoot.
I always have. Referencing page 5 of the packet, which is specifically labeled page 4 of 12 of the PC 2023-0309 minutes. I would like to pull from the consent agenda. She does not have a problem with the rezone request, because the discussion at that time was actually on the preliminary plats and the development agreements. And I had many issues actually related to the density, the setbacks, the number of units per building, that were all outside of our zone's code specifications. And I feel by having that one line in there, it could be misleading for somebody to go back and looks at the written minutes of the meeting without listening to the audio. And so either take that line out or just add in that additional clarification. I'm good with either option.
At page 12.
It was page 5 of the packet, page 4 of 12 of the actual agenda. In the top paragraph.
And you just want to have the additional clarity?
Yes, either add the additional clarification or just remove the line about me not having a problem with the rezone, because that gets addressed later on. When we're actually talking about the rezone to R7. Does any of my fellow commissioners have an issue with that amendment to the consent agenda for that section? Okay, that was it. That was the only one I had.
I didn't have anything else. Michelle, are you okay? Okay. All right, I'll look for a motion to approve with the amendment.
Yep, I'll go ahead and make a motion to approve the consent agenda, PC 2023-0309 minutes with the changes requested.
I'll second that. Roll call, Commissioner Stoll? Yes. Yes.
Yes.
I'm a yes as well.
As am I.
Welcome, Commissioner Boatright.
All right, moving on to item number 4, public hearing and action on preliminary final plan and rezone from RL to RM for PPU subdivision, 2-lot residential subdivision, approximately 0.79 gross acre located at 1885 East and 600 South for applicant Lincoln and Debbie Daggers. You want to go ahead and start us off?
Yeah. Member of the commission, this is a 2-lot subdivision. I want to correct a mistake in the memo I did, but when it's talking about the final plat, they're requesting a single lot. They're requesting a 2-lot. Our code allows any subdivision that is 1 to 10 lots the ability to combine both the preliminary and the final process at the same time. Upon recommendation of the sketch plan review committee. When we met with the Daggers about their subdivision, seemed pretty straightforward to us to allow them to go forward with a preliminary final submission. Like was stated, the current zoning is residential low, the general plan designation is residential moderate, and they are requesting residential moderate as a rezone for this property. The gross site is 0.79 acres, which puts the units per acre at 2.53, so two units on that 0.79 acres. This is underneath the 2.85 allowable units per acre in the RM zone, and so that therefore it does comply with that. All of the necessary items have been supplied on the final plat. In conversation with the Daggers, they do wish to make a slight amendment to their plat. And shift the line 5 feet to the east on the property. We received that earlier this week on Wednesday, and so we can supply that, but and show you all that tonight if you need to see that. But they do want to move that line over 5 feet. This doesn't substantially change any requirements. Doesn't it still meets widths and the total acreage needed for each lot. And so the staff doesn't see a problem with this amendment. So if that is something that you are willing to accept on that adjustment, then you would need to, in your recommendation to the city council, recommend the amendment of the 5 feet to the east on that. I would show you that, but we lack AV materials tonight. But does anybody have any questions on that before I move on? Like you said, we felt it was minor enough and didn't substantially change what was talked about in sketch plan, and so we felt comfortable moving forward with that. Plans have been submitted and reviewed by the city engineer, and they're sufficient for the preliminary final submission. Pretty cut and dry subdivision, that's very easy. Just kind of a gee whiz factor. When we do a 1, 2, or 3 lot subdivision in the RM, there's provisions for lot widths. We require 100 or 25% of lots to be 100 feet wide and no less no more than 25% of lots can be 80 feet wide. With the average remaining being 90 feet wide. So with the 2 lot subdivision, we basically round that to say at least 90 feet, we should be good. But they do have 100 plus foot width on 130. The home, is not on the property anymore, is that correct? It's gone, so, everything should be ready to go, when they receive their approval on that. And that's all I have to say. The diagrams are here tonight. If you have any questions after the public hearing, they can address this question.
Great. Thank you, Trevor. For a motion to open the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing and action on preliminary final plan and rezone from RL to RM for PQ subdivision to a residential subdivision, approximately 0.79 acres, gross acres, located at 1885 East, 7600 South for applicant Lincoln and Debbie Daggers.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that motion.
Favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes. Gary?
Yes. Sorry, I can hear some of you better than I can hear others, so
Who's coming through loud and clear? Let us know.
you are.
Public hearing's open, floor is yours.
Like we're good. Everyone here is, let's talk about something else. All right, then I'll look for a motion to close public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the hearing.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Gary?
Hi.
And I'm a yes as well. I almost said brother and sister today, so. Mr. Dagger, if you have anything that you'd like to say, you can quote, otherwise, it's fine. I think we're all. Thanks for. Okay. All right, then I'll look for a motion to approve item number 4. With the amendment of the lot line 5 feet to the east.
I'll make a motion to approve the action,
Just recommend approval.
recommend approval.
There's the handy dandy feet for you. Motion.
Oh. I move to recommend to the city council approval of the preliminary final plat and rezone. Residential lot. Low to residential moderate or peak subdivision at approximately 1885 east, 7600 south. With the provision to move the plat 5 feet to the east, the lot line 5 feet to the east.
West.
What?
East.
It's the
Is it east or west?
It's easy.
Okay, perfect. I heard one.
Sort them out.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Gary?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. All right, item number 5, public hearing and action on preliminary plan and rezone for Castle Cove Phase 1. Do I have to say the whole thing? No, okay, I didn't think so. Trevor, you want to give us an overview of that, please?
You bet. This one's been a long time coming. We're kind of excited about this one. And looking at the audience, I think some of you are excited in different ways about it. So we'll study about that tonight. Castle Cove Phase 1 is a multi-parcel development that's going to be happening. There's kind of a few moving pieces on that. One of the main things with this development is that we are entering into an administrative development agreement with the developer. You will see that on the final stage of this development. What that means is that there's a portion of the project area that includes city land that we secured a number of years back to ensure that we have a right-of-way connection through that area, connecting Lester Drive to 7375 South. This has been, that's the major portion of the development agreement. There's a few other items as such as maintenance agreement with the public utilities or the dedicated utilities there and a few other things. And we'll send that to you as soon as we get the final draft ready to go. But that development agreement is, because it's administrative and because it deals with land use, not land use, because it deals with property acquisition or I think of the opposite of acquisition. Disposal. Yes, one of those words. There's a better word, but I can't think of it in my mind. The exchange of property, there we go. Because it deals with the exchange of property, that is the purview of the city council. The planning commission will receive that just as an informational piece, but it's because it's administrative on those grounds. It's not land use oriented necessarily, and so it's not necessary to receive a recommendation from the planning commission on that. So don't think you're being slighted by that at all. It's just roles and responsibilities, right? And so so this is the preliminary plat discussion tonight. There's obviously the final process that's going to come forward. But as we were reviewing the project, we felt comfortable with what was submitted to continue forward. So this subdivision is 11 lot subdivision. Approximate acres is 5.461 acres. Like I said, there's multiple properties being included into this. The city has property, the developers acquired property, and there's other landowners that want to be included in the subdivision of their own properties, and so they've chosen to be a part of this as well. It is a rezone request. The majority of the zoning is agriculture, but there are already some portion of the property that's residential moderate. And it is consistent with the general plan designation of residential. Units per acre is 2.01 approximately, which is again lower than that 2.85, and so it complies with those requirements. There are a number of concerns with cross-access agreements with a private right-of-way at 1025 east. We've worked with the property owners in that area. I've looked at all of the available documentation for those cross-access agreements and the private rights of way. So every property will continue to maintain access onto a public street through this. The private right of way of 1025 east will intersect at the Lester Drive connection as it connects to 7375. Anticipated, we'll just call that Lester Drive for the sake of the conversation all the way through. And then there is some access agreements into some remainder parcels that are up to the south of that property that currently has a stub off of that from Lester Drive, that a new stub will be created around the bend of Lester Drive into those properties, providing a little bit better access, but it does provide that access to those properties and maintains that access agreement within there. Let's see. There's a few different projects, so I'm trying to get my head wrapped around the right one tonight. All lots to comply with the regulations and the residential moderate, the square footage and the lot minimum widths are all consistent and meet those requirements there. Access is, like I said, we worked with the access routes, and they're all consistent and provide the necessary access for those areas. There's going to be required some vacation of current utilities that are running along that property and reorienting those utilities into the new right of way that have been accounted for in the improvement plans. We have our engineer here tonight if you have any more questions about that as well. There are still some finalizing on those utility improvements, especially the storm drain improvements for that area. But we feel that we're comfortable enough with the preliminary review and the preliminary plans to put that storm drain into lot 102. I believe now, I remember lot 108, I'm sorry, lot 108 in the subdivision as a temporary basin, and when I say temporary, we are talking about government temporary, so we're hoping that in the next 100 years we'll get a new one, just kidding, but we that is a basin for that development, and as we get further downstream improvements in the area, we anticipate that once those improvements are sufficient enough for the storm drain flows, that will then be released back to the property owner there. And so there's going to be necessary to have a maintenance agreement on that property. The developer will retain the ownership of that property, they'll retain the expectation to maintain that land, and we'll create that maintenance and operations agreement with that area. There is a portion of the property that will need to be vacated, Lester Drive. We're proposing that be vacated back to the original owner. And we are in the middle of researching the exact original owner of who had that property before that Lester Drive was. Typically, that's very typical when you're vacating a street, it goes back to the original owner or a neighboring parcel, whatever one is decided upon by the city council. And we're recommending it be back to the original owner at that point. Have I missed anything, Brandon? Bill? Okay. I think that's all for the high level overview. Obviously, after the public hearing, I can answer any questions, and you can have any further conversation on this development.
Okay. Thank you, Trevor. All right, look for a motion to open up public hearing on item number 5. I will keep the public hearing on item number 5. Table then.
No, Trevor said,
Okay. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Yes.
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 Hi.
Gary?
Yes,
All right, so public hearing is officially open. If you have some comments, please feel free to come forward.
I guess you might say, sorry.
It's a long walk then.
Yes, it is. Hey, my name is Barbara Shue. I live at 933 East South River Drive and 925 East. Our son Kyle Shue sent each one of you, the city council and the mayor, an email, and I hope you all read it. I hope you went and drove up that road to see. With this subdivision, I know you need a septic access to exit the subdivision, and then you are going to use 7350 East as the exit for this second subdivision. I know the developer has come to before 2 separate prior mayors, and it has been denied both times. But if you're going to use this, I would ask that you please improve the existing road to what the South Weaver codes are in the city. Before this development's ever processed and improved, you know, get that corner that's not going to be a paved road of only 25 feet. I think the code says that it has to be 44 feet, the paved access to it. So my recommendation is just get the improvements done before. If it needs to be curb and sidewalk for the safety of our kids to drive or walk to school. I mean, this is a big issue. There's nowhere for those kids to go, and we're including 30 more homes and more than that. So thank you. I sit there.
And my name is Natalie Dayton, and the property owner, I'm the property owner of 7420 South, 1025 East, and I'm a third property owner of 7430 South, 1025 East. And just to inform the planning commission, there's an error on your public notice. Item number 5 states 5,000 461 acres, where it should state 5.461 acres. So just so you know that. And to address Mr. Cahoon, nobody has contacted us regarding a cross-access agreement on the private drive. And myself and my husband Mark are owners of that private drive as well, and nobody has contacted us for a cross-access agreement. So now I'd like to address the planning commission about the road in Castle Cove Phase 1, number 10. It states stub and flag. What kind of road is this proposed to be? Is this a local street that has a 70-foot wide width with an additional 10 feet on each side of the curb and gutter and sidewalk, which will devalue my property as well as others there? This road is not on your general plan. This is something that the contractor has decided he would put in, and then it will devalue our property. From Phase 1 plot map, this road appears to connect to South Bench Drive. Or at least that looks like the intention. And I feel there is no need for this road to connect to South Bench Drive. That would flow directly behind my home and would cross my property to the east. In 1998, Mitchell Cove subdivision deeded a 60-foot right-of-way collector road to South Weaver City. And I don't know if any of you know that, but there is a deeded right-of-way road already deeded to South Weaver City that is already in place to connect to South Bench Drive. So why do you need a road that shoots between houses right there behind my home and across my property? So this time I would like to ask the planning commission to either table or to vote no on this Phase 1 subdivision preliminary development plan until the contractor can at least provide a second option as to that number 10 stub and plug road, because it is a detriment to my property. Thank you.
Jim Hall, 826 East South Weaver Drive. Two comments on this. First of all, if anybody's been paying any attention to what's happened in our state, we no longer need a 70-foot road and 7-foot park strips. The state is paying people to get rid of them. It provides you nothing but wasted space, and it makes you get less usable ground with a 70-foot road. And I just hope that it was a poor decision to go with 7-foot, or 7-foot park strips and 70-foot roads. I hope this council and the city council has looked at that and recognized that a 60-foot road will suffice. Everything needs to be done. Second thing, on the road going to the west, I know the plan is to fix it in so many years down the road. Nobody knows how long that is. Nobody knows how long we have here to be here. But there's got to be a sidewalk of some sort put in for the kids to walk along that road. Is just not feasible and safe. Not have a sidewalk one side or the other, if not both, for the kids to walk on, because that will be used and there'll be a lot of traffic on this. Thank you.
Tell us who you are.
I did.
You didn't know. I didn't hear you.
I heard you.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll look to close the public hearing on, oh, go ahead, sorry.
I have two small comments, and one of it has to do with Lester Drive again. The city's tried to extend Lester Drive in the past, like 3, 4, 5 years ago, and that failed. And number two, and it was alluded to earlier, Does the existing subdivision to the south plus the proposed subdivision exceed the allowable unit count with only one exit as per South Weaver City Code? I believe the number is 32. Thank you.
Chris Paul, 1077 East South Beaver Drive. Our property borders the subdivision that they're talking about, and we're just wondering, as a family, what kind of fencing is gonna be put around the property. We got lots of horses in there, and they're expensive horses, and we're just wondering if we're gonna look out and have 10 different fences along the border there, or if there's gonna be one continuous fence that looks good and will keep the horses in and not injure the horses that are in there. And I also think that they need the sidewalks along the thing for the kids and all that. They put it all in down our road, South Beaver Drive, because they were worried about the kids' safety walking along the side of the road. And this road's gonna be used as a main thoroughfare from this elementary school. Thank you.
Now, look for,
Oh, wait, I'm sorry, I'm just waiting for everybody. I'd like to say something. My name is Wayne Cap. I live here in South Weaver and I am a developer. The reason this project hasn't gone the last few years, it's non-profitable is the biggest thing, and I don't want to sound arrogant, you know, I'm here to make money, but the reason this project can go now is because the city's purchase of the Dayton property. And I'm still probably gonna lose about $150,000. But it gives me the opportunity to develop Castle Cove 2. We developed all of Easton Village, which is west of the school, me and my brothers, and run into a roadblock that we have to have another way out after 30 lots. And so this has given us our other way out. The city deemed it a safety road to give one more access away from the elementary school, and I agree with them. 73, 75, 925 need improvements. The city has already agreed to that. They just don't have a time frame yet. But it's all the process of developing and improving and giving people opportunity to live in a great town. Yes, and including me. I live here. The Castle Cove 2 is my final lot. Is why we're doing all this, why I'm willing to take a loss to finish my other lots. And me and my brothers, I'm not taking it alone. But we talked about it, we thought, you know, none of us are getting any younger. It's now's the time, and so. But I think it's been well designed. Brand, in our last meeting, when he said, "Yep, you've got everything, we're gonna recommend you for the planning commission." He even said, this little, at that time was a 9-lot subdivision. And going, we spent more time and effort on this than we do a 50-lot subdivision. Just from its unique aspects of a private road, hook it onto a private road, buy a house, tear it down. And anyway, so I appreciate you guys' time very much.
I'm Heidi Bell and I live at 7411 South, 1075 East. So I'm right at the house that borders with the stub road. And I agree with those that are on 7350 further down where this subdivision will connect, that their road does need to be improved and they need sidewalks for their kids and stuff, but as living in the Easton, village, is that right? I can't ever remember. We don't ever call us that very often. But with the school there is a huge traffic problem with the school. That wasn't planned very clearly, and any parent that has tried to drop their kids off or pick their kids up understand the chaos that is there. And I have always felt that once Lester could be finished and connected to South River Drive and give parents another access to get out instead of coming in and out of the same area, it will help improve the safety of our kids. So I do think we need to find a way to help those people that their road has not been improved enough for their safety. But it also needs, this subdivision needs to go in so we can get that connection and get another outlet, even for our school and for those parents that are picking up and dropping off their kids, because buses are getting even less and less because they can't get bus drivers. So then that means more and more parents are showing up to drop off and pick up their kids. So, thank you.
My name is Brent Ball, 1375 East, 7605 South, South Weaver. I'm here on a little bit of a different mission, quite a bit different. The first thing is, why in the world are you developing the west end of South Weaver? It's been on the national priority list as one of the most hazardous places in the United States since 1987. Most hazardous place in the United States. Have you tried, is it still on the national priority list? Yes, it is. If you tried to take it off, you have the power to take it off the national priority list? No, you don't. It has to be approved by the state of Utah, by the Pluter Hill Air Force Base, and by EPA before it can be taken off. And then it goes through a process of public input and everything like that. It's a long, long way. I sent you, I think, 15 PDFs. You look at PDF number 10, and this is where some of the people on the city planning commission and the city council were saying it's all over but the shouting, this pollution thing. All over but the formalization. And so I sent in a FOIA request to EPA to say, is this true? And they came back to say, it's far from being delisted. The place is scary, polluted. Pregnant women and children most vulnerable to it all. And yet here we are up here promoting subdivisions and making sure the roads are good. While our kids could be killed by this pollution. And sometimes you don't have the effects of this pollution for 20, 30, 40 years. We have a federal facilities agreement here, signed by the state of Utah, by EPA and the polluter, and they say it's going to remain like this until some uncertain time in the 2040s. And yet here we are, 1923, building subdivisions that they say are polluted to the point that they're on the national priority list and deserve to stay there for another almost 20 years. Why are you doing this? Can you answer that? Don't you see risk? Don't you see the need to protect the people? I know it says right in your bylaws that you exist to promote the health and welfare of present and future residents. You're failing. You're putting them at risk. You could be killing them. You need to know that. You shouldn't be doing this. You should be backing up and getting your act together to make sure that you're taking care of these people. One more thing about the people. Every person who owns contaminated property, which includes most of us, is also by law, certainly, a potential responsible party. You can look that up. Look at all the responsibilities that go there. And they're so extreme that if someone were to make $200 million, they could be held responsible for cleaning up the entire Superfund side up on OU1. The cost of cleaning that up is $360 million. And yet by law, if they had someone rich enough, they could hit them up to pay for the whole thing. There is a provision in the law, they can't take more money than you've got, so we're relatively safe. But it is that big of a deal. Anytime you can say that you can be responsible for $360 million liability,
That's a lot of liability, but everybody is liable, and if you sell the property, you're still liable. Prior owners and current owners. Again, I'm looking to you guys. You're supposed to be the adults in the room on something like this. You're not supposed to be putting. And yet you've done it. I haven't been active before you guys in the last 4 or 5 years, ever since they had the Waverly case. You heard about the Waverly case? The Waverly case is when Hill Air Force Base and all military installations got what they call a federal exception. That means that they don't even have to really try to clean up their pollution because of the military. They can clean it up if they want to, but they have the discretion not to. Up until that point in time, we had a technical advisor, 24 quarterly reports, 24 years of 96 quarterly reports, trying to get the thing resolved. But after they had the Waverly case where they don't have to clean it up, we haven't been as active here lobbying you people as we should have been. But what you're doing is wrong. Every subdivision that you build, you're putting people at risk. Absolutely putting them at risk. Not maybe, absolutely. You need to know that. And again, they say that they don't expect that to change until sometime in 2023. Excuse me, 2040s, some uncertain time in the 2040s. You have to look at that explanation of significant differences, read it. Any questions?
My name is Jason Stott. I live at 1025 East, 7340 South Weaver. Back to the Castle Cove development. So I just have one concern, and I think I'm under the right understanding of talking to Lane, is the 1025 East will be all right of ways were supposed to be absolved going through there, because I just fear that traffic coming down the new Lester Drive will turn onto that property, and if any of you've all been over there, that road is terrible, and there's no sidewalk on that one either for my children to walk home from school, so they end up walking right down the middle of 1025 East. So if traffic's cutting through there, that could be an issue. And so I think we've already resolved that, but I just want to make that aware. Maybe I'm under a misunderstanding about that too. So anyways.
Okay. Now, I will look for a motion to close public hearing.
I'll second. Can we ask for, order in the chamber, please? Order. I didn't want to do that. Thank you.
Sorry, who was the second? Julie? And I'll get a roll call.
Yes.
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 Okay, so, move to questions, on item number 5 from my fellow commissioners. Starting with Gary, I'll let you go first, that's right?
I'll defer to someone else first. I'm interested in the discussion that everybody else will have.
Commissioner Stoll?
One of my questions was about the private drive, but based on the comment. Maybe it's not relevant. If that, I'd say if that conversation has to take place, then.
So
that's an issue.
yeah, what will happen with 1025 is that anything south of Lester Drive will access 1025 up through Lester Drive. Anything north of Lester Drive, it's anticipated on the Stott property, there's going to be a gate that's going to be placed on 1025 to discourage traffic, local traffic from going on that private right of way all the way out to South Weaver Drive. So it will stop any local traffic from coming that way on the northern portion of 1025.
Will there be signage? 'Cause I'm just looking at the aerial overview on that. So basically where the stop property is there gonna be signage posted on Lester Drive indicating that that's a dead end or a private road?
We can ask.
Kind of like we have similar to on the east side of the elementary school, and actually those houses that are to the east, that's a private drive that's designated. Okay.
Yeah, we could designate that.
Is the same thing gonna happen for 1025? Because I guess 1025 does end at Lester Drive. It does not continue on the west side of the Dayton property, correct?
That's 1075. 1025.
1025.
1025.
So I'm trying to understand, because I'm seeing the plat map here. And
What page reference?
I'm on page, let's go to the site plan on page. Hang on a second. Only 30, I believe. Yep, it's page 30. So we've got 1075, that's right there at that little bay intersection,
Scroll west, and that's
and
1025.
then you have 1025.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're talking about
1025.
1025. As you're exiting west out of this development.
Correct, so currently 1025 does not connect at all to 7375 south. 7375 south dead ends at that wonky shaped cul-de-sac. And then the 1025 continues out and feeds all of those homes along 1025 with their access out to South Weaver Drive. With the extension of Lester Drive onto 7375 south, the homes to the south of that will access to the public right of way at Lester Drive. Lot 111 will have access onto Lester Drive, and we'll be placing a gate to limit access, public access north, so it'll dissuade local traffic from trying to utilize that shortcut to South Weaver.
Okay.
And so, just to make sure I understand, oh, sorry.
No, I'm just making sure you can, everybody can hear you. No, I don't remember, you go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna ask, as I was looking at this map, I'm looking at the sidewalk.
I'm sorry, but I am a landowner on 7375. Just found out about this meeting. So I have been actually advised that this is an illegal meeting to be, when not all landowners have been on. Can I ask why I didn't receive anything from the city?
We can go talk in the other room, we can get your address and look at where, we're required to notify everybody within 300 feet of the project area.
Oh, mine's there.
Okay,
I've paid taxes on it for 40 years. I can get you proof of that and bring it in next week from
okay,
the county.
we can, if you want to meet with me out in this other room, we can talk about that.
Thank you. Okay, good.
Okay, so. As we're looking at this particular site plan. I see sidewalks through the development. We're talking about sidewalks to the east on Lester Drive, is that correct?
West,
West.
through 7375.
Right.
Okay,
There's already sidewalks on Lester on one side.
yes. Okay, so we're talking about west of the development. Okay,
Yeah.
great, I understand that. Now, that property is owned by the city, is that correct? No, that's,
Property is the east 1.8 acres of my development. The farthest east and south.
Yeah, the answer is yes, 7375 south is owned by the city.
oh, yes, owned by the city, yes, yeah, yes.
And I don't know if I can make comments to help clarify the 1025, but. So Jason Stott is the property owner there. And Trevor said he'll go on to South Weaver Drive, and he doesn't want to go on to South Weaver Drive, he wants to come on to Lester and block it off at his property. And this Let's do it, see. The Talbots live on the corner, and that would give them that entire road, which is their property anyway, but they can pull the asphalt, extend the yard, whatever they want, but Jason wants to come on to Lester, less road maintenance is what it is. And so, and we've talked about it, the city, myself, that road needs to be blocked. You can't have this. It's maybe 20 feet of asphalt, I think more like 15. And you can't have people coming from the school going, I'm gonna take the shortcut. And it puts way too many, they all have kids right there, it puts way too many kids at risk to do that, so it needs to be blocked off besides private lane, no exit, whatever. You know, we plan on that, but we need advice on what signs are the best, but so.
Okay.
And I did the labels, you go to Davis County, said, here's my address, I need to be within 300 feet. And Simbri owns a 1 foot holding strip. One that's back there talking to her now. On the north side of 7375, she sold her house and kept 1 foot holding strip. And so that's who's back there talking. So why she didn't get notified, I don't know.
Any more questions or concerns?
I guess. I want to understand that four-way intersection a little bit better where you have that one spur that's terminating. Right there into the Lyle Johnson property. And just understanding the purpose behind that.
Are you talking about Castle Cove Place?
This.
Yeah.
South.
So you're talking Lyle Jorgensen,
I'm sorry, say that again?
Lyle Jorgensen, Natalie Dayton, is that the home you're talking?
Yes,
So they're on that right away.
okay,
Same with the Mitchell home that's right behind Lyle's, are on that right away. And their access will be on to Lester, not
okay,
on the South Weaver Drive.
okay. And so they have made provisions on their properties to connect to this little spur.
We'll do all the connecting.
Okay.
Yeah.
On their property there.
Yeah.
On the kind of the south side of the subdivision boundary.
Yes.
Do I need to come up because he's not addressing the stub, number 10. The stub and flood, number 10. He's not addressing that. What's his intentions?
Well,
It's-
You want me to try to respond?
But yeah, 'cause I don't know what 10 is.
Can I show you? You look right here. This is called the stub and flood. This is my home, with my husband. This is Curtis and Suzanne Mitchell. This is Lyle Jorgensen.
Right.
Mark Dayton, Natalie Dayton, Curtis Mitchell, Suzanne Mitchell. Do you see what this is gonna do? There's already a south bench right here with a dedicated road. Why is he trying to come through our property eventually? Why can't he make a turn around?
You are showing it as though it's going to go straight. It wouldn't have to.
Well, that's what it goes.
It could turn and go directly south. I think the reason for the stub is you do not want to leave people without access.
He doesn't have to. He can put in a turnaround, a roundabout right there on his own huge lot. He can put in a turnaround. You see what this does if we go to sell any of these 3 pieces of parcels of property?
Commissioner Davis,
Yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I'm not in the room, but things are kind of crazy. From my perspective, I don't know if we should just table this right now. I mean, Trevor's in talking to that woman. People are speaking from the crowd. I don't think anything's going to get done here until there's order and some more information. That's just my perspective. Again, I'm not in the room. I apologize, but.
Gary, I'm happy. I believe I can answer any questions that I mean, Trevor and I have worked together on this, so I think I can answer any questions.
And I'm fine with that. We just keep getting interrupted from the crowd. The public hearing was open and is now closed, and we need to be able to have a discussion and get our questions answered so we can address these issues. I understand the public wants to comment. I get that. I'm a resident myself, but the public hearing's closed.
So I guess in short, maybe to try to address the stub road. There is, the general plan shows, general street connections. That are. Yes, to be determined, some we know more directly, like Lester to 7375 shows up on the general plan. As a collector that needs, it shows to connect. South Bench Drive through the Mitchell Cove subdivision that was referred to earlier does show a right of way through there. And that would certainly be something that if they chose to do more development would happen. Whether or not this stub would connect to that road, I don't know.
Sure, sure.
The property owners are the ones that are in control. Because they're the ones who choose to sell their ground or develop it or do nothing with it. So the stub would simply be available with utilities and a road, which makes the property developable.
Right.
If they so chose. Otherwise, it would stay as is.
Yeah, and that was my question about it, because I mean, there's plenty of stub roads throughout the city that some of them clearly way before I was around. That I just assumed you don't have the right to just do anything with it.
No.
But if I own that land and I choose to sell it to the city or to a developer or whoever to develop, that's my choice, but otherwise it's my land.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Right. The stubs are just,
That's
are
what my
there
understanding was.
for, as a planning,
Sure.
to try to make sure that you don't have properties that get landlocked.
And that was the big question as I was looking at this, not being as familiar with this as maybe other people may be, are there any orphan properties? Are there any, or remnant properties that are not connected to a road?
Not that I'm aware of. With this stub and adding access from that stub to those properties on the south. They would still have the private road that we've been talking about south of Lester Drive.
Okay.
But they would also have a connection from the stub. potentially.
So
there's
north or south.
right, there's additional access now more so than was there before. From a public road.
Thank you.
And then I agreed, so there, I mean, I'm just making sure I understand this, so there is park strip in this plan?
Yes, that's the standard road section.
And I understand that, but I have to agree with the comment on that, I mean, do we have the say in saying that it's not required?
A park strip?
For this,
You're saying the total width.
Right. I mean, we're not really there, I mean, the city standard is what it is, and if the planning commission and city council want to change that, they certainly can, but that's what's on the books today.
That's what it is today.
And I don't know if this helps or not, but we did this whole process of redefining what the standard road width would be and include sidewalks and gutter and all that stuff within the last 6 months, I want to say. And did we establish it that park strips would be, I know it was commented that it was 70 feet for the roads and 7 feet for the park strip.
So when the city standards were revised and updated, there was nothing that changed on the standard road cross section.
Okay,
It has
on the
been
private right of way.
private right of ways, yes.
But the
Yeah,
city
this is
standard is state.
This is a public road, so it's, that nothing has changed there. I think it was maybe 2012 when the city went from a 60-foot right of way to a 70-foot right of way. Any subdivision since has this cross section, and there are several subdivisions you can go and look at if you want to see what that feels like. But it is a 6-foot sidewalk, it is a 7.5-foot park strip. There certainly is water issues with park strips potentially. I think what you'll find is that there is a push for either 0 park strips, so put the sidewalk right against the curb, or make the park strip large enough that you don't waste water. So the previous standard, like previous to 2012, the park strip was like 4.5 feet. Very difficult to irrigate that very effectively, right? The 7.5 has, at least so far, proved to be a little bit easier, more efficient to actually irrigate something that's that size. Now, if the city wants to change that at some point in time in the future, they certainly could. But what's the standard right now, and really what we have to proceed forward with, is the 7.
And then my last question was the sidewalk. So it does appear that there is sidewalk, but there's still that last part on like Lester from 12, what's that street? 1160, right? That doesn't connect down the rest of
The
Lester.
sidewalk does about the north side of the road now.
But now we're gonna increase the traffic.
There's sidewalk on the south side. That's what the city's requirement was when.
Yes.
we developed
Okay,
it.
so there is
There'll be
sidewalk
through this whole
the
development.
whole way.
There is sidewalk on the south side of Lester Drive right now, so there still would be a continuation.
Okay.
Certainly, anything outside of this is going to be the city's responsibility, and there's obviously dollars to that, so. I think I'm safe to say that this has been discussed at length with the city council, and the need for improving 7375 and 925 is very apparent. I believe it's their intention to do so as soon as they can afford to do so, but I don't think they can put a time frame on that yet.
That was gonna be my question, that there was something that 75. Yeah, I was talking to Trevor previous to this, and he said that was part of the plan, but I think it's your point, there's a cost restriction, right?
Yes, yeah, the improvements, some of the. So there was a 3-lot subdivision at the corner of 7375 and 925. And there's been a couple on 925. Where those, like the funds for sidewalk and curb and gutter. Were paid to the city, they're still sitting there. So that can be used at that to improve those roads, but you can't really just do it piecemeal. You're gonna have to do the whole project. So they have to have funding for the whole project before they could move forward. That funding will help to pay for those portions, but the other portions that don't have any funding behind them, city's got to still, have the money to do that.
Do you have more questions?
No, that was, yeah, I don't know if we addressed that. If she was still concerned about having been contacted by the.
No, they're still
There's,
talking.
For the private road, right,
Are you familiar with the property that she owns?
No.
Just so you're aware of,
I'm just basing it solely off her comment that
right,
not having been contacted
do you know where?
about the road,
I
not
do,
the one about the
Like,
property.
so Simbri Bar, who's talking with Trevor right now,
No,
Yes. It's Simbri.
yeah,
She got a different name now, her far.
oh, is it not far?
Yeah, she got a different, I can't tell you who it is. Okay. And she moved.
So she used to live on the south side of 7375. I think a couple homes down from this connection. And for whatever reason, I can't really speak to the history of why it was allowed or done that way, but there's a 1-foot holding strip that runs along the north side of 7375 that's owned by different owners. And so there's several pieces, and it kind of lines up with the owners on the south side in some cases, but it doesn't in every case. And so I believe she still owns one of those little pieces.
Is it the one on, I apologize that none of you can see my computer screen.
Yes.
This little strip that goes over 3 different parcels.
No, it's way smaller than that. It's,
Okay. So it's somewhere along.
it's close to where this connection is, but on the north side of 7375.
Just for a point of reference, because.
Yes.
That was all my questions. Commissioner McFadden, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, I wanted to just briefly talk about, what, the comments about the contaminated soil. I mean, my apologies, I am only as good as the information I have, and I don't know what I don't know. But can anybody here, speak a little bit more toward the information that was provided, because it was new information, not in the packet, not that I was aware of. And, you know, how do we proceed with that information?
I was looking at it actually earlier today, and pull it over quickly. It's on the all right, so what's specifically called out is the OU1 and OU2. There's OU4 or OU3 happens to be. But those items that are colored orange and yellow and red, those are the areas that.
They're the plumes.
Okay. That's right. To my understanding, that's what was being addressed primarily. None of these divisions touch those areas. So for me, it wasn't a concern. In fact, the phase 1 isn't even in these sensitive lands area.
Right.
Phase 2 ends up in the sensitive lands area, but it's not near the plume. So from my perspective, I don't see that as a concern that we would need to address. I think that's something that the city council can address after in the next stage, I think, but I don't think in my opinion, this development is impacted by those plumes.
And I was questioning why those comments were given during the public hearing on this specific thing, because I agree with you, Commissioner Davis. I know Mr. Paul has raised those concerns for several years, but I don't think that like you, that they really affect this specific thing.
Yeah. Do you have any more questions? Did that answer?
Yeah, yes, that answered my question. I don't have any more questions.
Commissioner Wilson?
Do you want to go first?
See if I already have my questions answered. I did have a question about lot 108, and I think it was answered basically that for the interim period that turned into a retention basin. Correct. Until further development is done downstream to take care of the water retention requirement. Is that right?
Correct, yes. So they will hold on site basically their own drainage. And the geotech report that has been submitted shows that the water can percolate as required. So it can be allowed at this point in time. The long-term plan would be to provide drainage improvements to 925 and 7275 will be needed when the road is done. And at that point in time, the storm drain could be tied into there, thus allowing that retention basin to go away. It requires more than just storm drain piping though. It would have that downstream retention basin. So there is not a lot of storm drain system in this area. So this meets the need for now. And it would remain like that until such time as that, you know, downstream improvements go in, there's not a time frame.
And the look and feel that on this means it's like a grassy area.
It would probably, it'll be, both, grass and rock.
We're gonna landscape it, yes.
The intent is that it would look nice, but continue to be maintained by the property owner.
I was just gonna ask about maintenance.
And then I had a quick question about the question that came up on the fencing. I wanted to ask the developer, was there any plan to put up a fence along the north side and the east side of that, or is that gonna be up to the landowners? How are you?
We haven't discussed
It is required between, if there's anything along an ag zone,
And that land.
required as part of the development, so that.
So that'll be part of the final.
Wherever it's zoned agricultural, there has to be a fence there. Outside of that, it's optional.
Is that fencing requirement a chain link fence, a vinyl fence, we know?
6-foot chain link at a minimum.
it. We did vinyl in our other, east of the village.
And it certainly can be.
Right.
Okay, great. And then there was talk about a cross access agreement. I was getting kind of confused exactly what that was all about. Can you speak to that?
The private road is a private road because there is an agreement in place with all the property owners that allows for access across the property. The private road is just, the easement is what gives them the right to cross those properties. But the property itself is actually owned by each of those individual properties over which it crosses.
So Brandon, can you specify what that private road is? I keep hearing people mention it, but I want to make sure I know exactly where it's at.
So it's called 1025 East.
Okay, that's, so that whole road from South Weaver Drive to the end is the private road?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I want to make sure.
Right, it has some asphalt and feels like a road, but it certainly can go away. At least north of Lester Drive. Once this road is through, because there would no longer be a need for that, and it's not a public road, so.
And so again, what I think I heard is that there would be a gate on the 7375 south that would block access to the 1025 east. Is that correct?
It would actually be on that north line of lot 111. And it doesn't even need to be a gate. It could just be fenced across.
Okay.
I was gonna ask, kind of piggybacking on that, Commissioner Boatright, is it going to allow pedestrian access? Or is it going to be fully fenced to where, I mean, obviously no cars, but if there's, children that wanna get to the school, are they still gonna be able to access via 1025? Or are they gonna have to go to South Weaver Drive and then come up?
They would need to go to South Weaver Drive. 1025 again is not public. The fact that maybe the public has been using it doesn't change that fact. It's still private property and by agreement is only allowed for the use of those people whose names are on that agreement. So when this gets connected, it really doesn't exist as a public road for vehicles or pedestrians.
So can I ask this why is it being connected then? I mean, can that just be cut short rather than connecting it?
It's not being connected.
It's being built.
It's only to the south are they going to continue to allow that along the west side of lot 109. That will stay in place, and you can see it's labeled as parcel A.
Okay, I see that. Thank you.
So you'll
Sorry,
see on 111, there's nothing.
I saw that. Sorry, I don't know how to read plans, so I appreciate the clarification.
A masterclass.
And then you answered my question on the sidewalk, that was a concern. I think that seems like the largest concern that's up, and from my perspective, that's a city council item that they have to address, that's not, we need to address here.
Correct. You could certainly make the recommendation that they consider that as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's on the contamination.
No, this
Oh,
Sidewalk.
is that?
all right, that's all my questions. Oh, good.
Just on the basin, I mean, I understand the need for it, that we have to have it, and I don't know what the proper way to landscape it is to avoid, I mean, the basin that's down off, what's this one down here off 89, next to the townhomes.
Right off of 2700.
Are you talking 89?
Or it's not 84, sorry.
Oh, 84.
I'm pointing in the right direction, I'm just saying the wrong street. But, I mean, I lived down by that one for a while. And even, I mean, the park on 1900, I mean, when we get our water cut. I mean, they just turn into horrible goat head farms, and, I mean, I don't know what, I'm not a landscape person, so. I mean, I guess, I mean, it can be done that, I assume, however, that some way to avoid the need to have a whole bunch of grass that has to be watered, even though that might be preferred, but it also looks horrible and ends up just popping kids' tires like crazy, so. I mean, I don't know what the fix is for. I mean, I just thought I'd bring it up as an idea when you're thinking, I get we have to have it, but some way to help avoid that, unless we get winters like this every year, and then we can just probably water it. But in which case, I'm perfectly happy with the grass.
Right. In this particular case, we're maybe giving a little deference to what they want to do here because they will continue to own it and maintain it.
Sure.
We're just making sure that it is maintained.
Yeah.
For the other ones where the city owns those, there's ongoing conversations of the best way to do that, because we have to maintain them.
Right.
And sometimes, just putting rock everywhere ends up with weeds, and so, I don't know, we haven't been able to find anything that's a perfect fix,
I
but
don't know either.
but it's a legitimate concern, because you want them to stay looking nice.
Sure. That was all I had.
Okay, first, I just want to acknowledge and thank the public comments that were made on this. We have listened to you, and I appreciate it, even though most of you left. You're not hearing my gratitude. And taking into account everything that has been said, I really do still think there is some work and there's some questions, some big question items that are out there. And maybe even some potential redesigning, because I'll admit this, what do they call it, the stub. I don't know if it's right now, if that's necessary, and if it's land that is currently owned by lot 108. And could maybe be a part of 108 if it becomes a time. I don't know if that's something right now that we have to plan for that, if that's a concern. I do 100% agree that this connection needs to happen. I do feel like the connection that we're now designing is just being pushed further to the west for 3735. But I also agree that that property at 3735, between multiple owners and the things that are still to be determined, that might just be a future. Right, am I understanding that right? For 3735, right, where lots 101 and 109, this right here, this connection, because you're saying this road is not continuing, correct?
73, 75.
Sorry. Forgive my dyslexia, it kicks in at the worst possible moments. 7375 is what I'm talking about. That
That it's
extension,
not going to connect?
Yeah.
It will connect.
it will, but do we have the plans for it? Or is
What do you mean?
7375 south
Yes.
is already connected right there. And that's right here, this is already an existing.
No,
This will connect the roads together.
This will connect
Yes.
7375. Sorry, that is what I'm asking.
Yes.
So it's
It will
not
be
that
connected.
this needs to develop, this portion of 7375 needs to be developed
The
and
whole street.
will continue over. Okay,
Yes,
so,
yes, the way that it currently exists is deficient.
yes. And it will be widened to the standards of a public road with all of the curbs, gutters and sidewalks on
Yes.
both sides of it, which
Yes.
does help address the safety and the connectivity. I am 100% in agreement with doing this. Because this community over here has only had one point of access with our code requires two. So it's needed.
Yes. Yes, this is consistent with the general plan.
So, no,
Okay, Gary, any comments to add?
So let me just ask this again, because I think I just heard something different. Will this new subdivision connect to 7375, or is it not going to connect?
It will connect. That is the whole point.
Okay, that's not what was said before, but it will connect
you
and
don't
be,
need to on the same point, so.
Yes, it will physically connect the two right of ways will physically connect and the asphalt will physically connect.
but it will be gated.
No,
The gating that will happen between Lester
Is the-
Drive and South Weaver Drive. So north and south. Between South Weaver Drive and Lester Drive will be blocked off.
the 1025 East private road to the north of Lester Drive will essentially be going away.
And Gary, if you look at page 30 on the packet, you can see that right there on the northwest corner, there is a little note that says install gate to restrict access through lot 111. That's what they're talking
Okay.
about.
Okay,
It's not
okay.
173.75, if that helps.
Sorry, I just had to magnify that to like 200% so I could read it. Sorry.
Yes, text is small.
All right. I don't know if I have any more questions. I apologize. Well, first of all, Brandon, I apologize. I wasn't insinuating that you couldn't answer our questions before. There was just seemed to be a lot going on. So apologize if it came across that way.
No.
Second, I don't think I have any more questions. I think I'm still a little confused at all the issues on this. So
This is preliminary.
yeah, I understand that. So, but I don't have any other questions. So,
Any other comments or questions for the developer?
I just have a comment.
Sure.
Overall, I mean, I like the idea of these plans for sure over anything that's high density, so. I mean, I think that there's some questions that came up that, overall, I think. The actual plan, I mean, once we get some things answered, I think it looks good, and.
Thank you.
I mean, if it can't stay agricultural and just empty, then this is probably the next best thing. So,
You're talking to the guy for the farm boy out there. So.
yeah. I mean, if I could buy it, I'd just buy it and leave it, leave it farmland, but I can't do that. But anyway, that was all I had.
It's only 5,461 acres.
Yeah.
And if I get all of that for the price of 5.4 acres. Oh, thank you.
And I do just want to point out for the clarification, it is 5.461 acres that we're talking about, not 5,461, as was erroneously put in the public hearing as well as into the agenda. So just that correction can get noted.
Thank you.
South Weaver's moving that big.
Okay, there wasn't anything that I heard that would make me want to not move this forward to city council as a preliminary. Obviously, there's still things that need to get done. So we'll just come back to you.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
It's
So-
not going to the city council, correct? It just comes back to us.
No, this is preliminary, so
That's
it'll
right.
just come back to you.
So, if there is anybody that disagrees, I'm okay with moving this forward, but I would just need a motion if you guys are in agreement.
Yeah, so just in agreement as is, or with everything that's been.
I don't think there's anything that we need to call out specifically. I think that's already all included outside of maybe, I don't think we need to include the type of correction in our statement, would we?
No, I don't think so. This is the,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, is anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll do it. I move to approve the preliminary plan, recommend to the city council approval of the rezone from agricultural to residential moderate. Castle Cove Phase 1, approximately 1050 East Lester Drive.
I second that motion.
All right, roll call, Commissioner Boatright,
Aye.
Commissioner Wiltie,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Stoll,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well, so that is unanimous. Thank you again, and Mayor Commissioner Wiltie's comments, thank you for all the comments that were given.
And know that there's still work to be done. This is not in its final step or final stage.
Can I say something, just 1 second?
There will be a moment that you'll get a chance to say that I'll let you.
Benefits you and the developer.
I'll let you make the comment in the next one, which is there's gonna be another open comment.
Okay.
Public hearing, yeah.
Okay, item number 6, public hearing and action on preliminary plan for Castle Cove Phase 2.
I'll make a motion to open
Yeah, go ahead.
the public hearing.
And I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Aye.
Yes. All right, if you'd like to afford that.
Mark Dayton, I'm a property owner, 7420 South 1025 East. When Lane was building Easton Village, the Cat Brothers, if you guys would have got out of this office, went down, looked at what the project was. After we finally got everybody on board, they went down, looked at it, it went smooth. How come you guys don't go look at your projects before you even have this meeting? And I'm asking that, why aren't you out of here, go down there and you'll know where each road is, it's your
Because
city.
can I answer that? I've been out of town for 2 weeks. That's why. Normally I do. I've been on the road.
There's 4 other people. I'm just saying, and it'd help you guys, it'd help this meeting, wouldn't it? It sure help the developer get going. I mean, I'm standing up for the developer here, so I'm just saying, get out of this office. We built Easton Village, they finally got out, went and looked at what was the problems or issues. No more meetings. That's all I've got.
There's, thanks, Brandon. But they don't want it.
Lane Cap again. And I would love to take each and every one of you, you want a history on this town? Let's go. I'm born and raised here, I'm 63. And I've seen it coming, develop and start with nothing and to the town we are, and I'm proud that I live in this town. Love this town. We took a beating when we went to Clearfield High School back in the day. We lived in South Weaver and it was 12 miles away and the wind blew and that's okay. Those people want to come live here now, but I appreciate your time. It's tough, but on Castle Cove 1, you don't know how many times I said, are you kidding me? To Brandon, and I've got a great relationship with him. I respect him, respect Trevor. Those guys are all about making it right. And it was a long process, and I think they've done a great job. And I think it's ready to go. I don't foresee any problems, and this is what I do for a living. This is just close to home. But thank you.
Okay, I'll look for a motion to close public hearing on item number 6.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on agenda item number 6.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes. Okay, Trevor, would you like to give us any additional comments on phase 2?
This one, obviously the only condition, I get two, because I'm not gonna. Just layer it, no, I was kidding. The only condition on this subdivision obviously is the connection of Lester Drive. I'm sure Brandon covered that if he spoke before he came in. Other than that, everything, it was the easiest one to review as a planner. All the lots absolutely complied, they all were oversized and great and everything everybody wants in the area. The design is great, continuation of South Bench Drive to 1160 East. Would be great, and yeah, there was no concerns on planning. Like I said, it was the easiest one for us to review. That matches, it was a good layup for us after doing some of the other ones we've done. It's a year and a half.
Any questions from my fellow commissioners? I'll start with you, Commissioner Stoll, on the screen.
Yeah, I didn't have any question on this. I feel the same way as the other one, that I prefer this over other options, and if I could buy it and keep it like it is, I would. You know, so I don't have any questions.
There's a price.
I think you know who to talk to.
Commissioner McFadden? Commissioner Wiltie?
One day we'll be back.
We're playing musical mics in case Commissioner Boatright wondered it's happening. No, I didn't have any problems with this. I actually think it extends out South Bench Drive, so it's not just that teeny little strip. That really doesn't go anywhere except for those existing 7 houses, I believe, that are right on for 6 houses. No, I think it's a great extension, and will be a great little community, and it doesn't have the issues that, you know, Western Drive and kind of all that discussion had, so I didn't have any concerns about it.
Commissioner Wright?
No, I'm in line with everybody else on this one. This was a little more straightforward, and think it's a good plan, so.
I just want to comment again that it is 8.852 acres, not 8,852 acres, as indicated in the agenda or on the website. Comment. I know, no comments, period. Very important.
I am also in agreement. I really like phase 2. Love the big monster lots. Those are fantastic. So I have no issues whatsoever on the phase 2. So I'll look for a motion to approve the item 6.
I move to approve the preliminary plan for Castle Cove Phase 2 at approximately 7550 south, 1160 east with the, oh, sorry, I was wrong. Yeah, there we go.
Good. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call. Commissioner Boatright,
Aye.
Commissioner Wiltie,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Stoll,
Yes.
and I'm a yes as well. Thank you for
Can I ask just when the next meeting is?
that. That's a question for.
Next week?
Planning commission.
No, because
As
it
soon
comes
as we
back
get
to
the
planning.
final submittal all buttoned up and ready to go and us review it, we'll get you on the next meeting. So you can get us that.
I thought we had everything in Canada.
Hey Lane, I'll take you up on that South Beaver tour, man.
I know way more than I
give
should.
what she's received, but
And I must say, I know he laughed, but I did drive as far as I could on the Lester Drive project to be able to access what I could. I respected the private right of way and didn't go down that road, so I tried to get as much visual access of the area as I could, so that helps answer his concerns.
I have been on Lester Drive. I did not go all the way through. So I'll admit that. But that's as far as I got.
I was impatient and voiced my concern with that question earlier, so you guys are better than I am, so.
All right, item number 7, action on final plat, 35 lot townhouse plat for Deer Run Townhomes, et cetera, et cetera. Trevor, would you like to give us any update on the?
absolutely. So just by way of information, this is just the final plat recommendation. We base this on the approvals. I didn't change the final, sorry, looks like I missed something on the. Yeah, project information section. I sketched this preliminary plan, so I apologize on that. We'll better our.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Oh, I know, man.
I appreciate that for being involved.
Okay. So this, we are reviewing the final plan. Final.
See you guys. See you.
Okay, good. So we're reviewing the final plat based on what was approved in the preliminary plan stage. The rezone, architecture review, site plan review, and the development agreement were acted upon at the last meeting. And have the recommendations needed for the development. So tonight is just the final plat. As we're reviewing the final plat, it is for 5 phases. The development, they're submitting them all at the same time, so they're receiving approvals on all of the phases at once. This makes it so that they don't have to come back in and do each phase individually. We've done that plenty of times on other developments. As we reviewed the final plat, everything was substantially similar to the preliminary plan. And we saw that most of the items were completed. We received the necessary letters that we were waiting for. And the only update to the landscape plan was notated in Brandon's comments for the access to the canal area and the manhole. Correct, Brandon?
Yes.
And the irrigation plan for the landscaping on the storm drain, storm basin there. I can never remember if it's detention or detention. Never, I know the difference, but I can never remember the difference when it comes to sitting up here. Those items, the improvement plans in the final stage are under the discretion of the city engineer. So we've done the preliminary improvement plan approval already. And so it's any minor things like the irrigation plan for the landscaping. This has to be done prior to the pre-construction and their permits to construct. And so those items have been addressed by the developer, and we are comfortable with those improvement plans there. The development agreement is updated. I think Paul for his comment on catching one discrepancy that both us and the developer did miss. I don't believe that they are based out of Wisconsin. And so we will have to update that. I don't know how that address got into the development group, but we reviewed that a million times and we both missed that. So we will update that for the city council.
Did you just fill in a mad copy and paste free?
It may have been resulted from the RV general development agreement. I copy and paste.
I think it might have been on the very, very original application. Way back.
I'm not sure. I don't know where the Wisconsin came from. But we'll get there. I mean, I can understand Florida a little better. Or Provo, but Wisconsin, I'm not sure. So thank you, Paul, for catching that. I don't know why that's been passed back and forth with us a million times and both of us probably just took that for granted there. As far as the review on the individual lots, they are all in compliance with what the development agreement has on that. Reminder, the development agreement is the zoning document for this project. We have the rezone request that we got the recommendation for R7. And so that is going to the city council at the time of the final plat review. Other than that, is there any other items on the engineering side? Final, just for reference purposes, final plans typically rest heavily on Brandon's shoulders and less on mine. Mine's quick glance and everything looks the same as the preliminary plan or substantially similar, and most of it's rests on Brandon's shoulders, so. Do you have anything else to add, Brandon, in the conversation before?
No,
Okay. So we'll be available for any questions. The developer is here for any other questions, and I'll kind of time back over to you.
Great, thank you. All right, I'll open up for questions among the.
I'd say.
I knew the whole time. I was in my head. For questions from my fellow commissioners, Commissioner Boatright, would you like to go first?
Sorry, I was looking for the mute button. No, I wouldn't.
I guess I just need to stop asking. Because
Yep.
you have conceded. Commissioner McFadden, would you like to go first?
I guess just for clarity, and as I'm looking at this site, sorry. This is the site plan. Plat. Yeah, plat, thank you. So you have a vault system in the detention basin, is that what I'm seeing there? Yeah, storm take.
it's actually a combination of both underground storage and above ground.
Ground, yeah.
So there will be some detention, you'll see water, when it's totally full, you will see water.
Okay. Cool. That's phenomenal, yeah. And probably because it's pretty steep land over there.
Right.
With lots of places where the water could come from.
It would be, if they did not do some underground, it would be very, very deep. So the combination of the two is good.
Yeah, and I respect that because those storm tech systems are not cheap. It's, you can avoid that. Typically you would, but I mean, I respect that a lot. And that helps, you know, keep it looking nice because it's not a giant hole. And so, yeah, thank you. And I'm gonna defer any other further questions that I have until, if I can take another turn, because I want to listen to what some of the other commissioners have fun with.
Yes, sorry. Okay. Commissioner Wilson, would you like to add anything?
Sure. There was quite a few questions that were asked in the, just during the general public comments today, because obviously there's not a public hearing on this one. And I don't know if you guys feel like you've got enough information to respond to any of those questions, because I'll admit I had a couple questions that lined right up with what he asked. Is that appropriate? Because I feel like those are questions that kind of aren't working.
Yeah, we can ask.
And do you want, if you want a copy of the questions, because I know there's been a lot of discussion since, and I don't even know if the developer Joseph Cook was here to hear the public comment at the beginning of the meeting. So I understand this might be Brendan questioning. Do you want to hear, if you want to maybe take a minute and just review the questions that were asked and see if you have a response to them. While you're doing that, there was a couple other items that I just want to bring up regarding this. And I'm curious why this plan has come back for a final review without appearing to address any of the noted concerns that were brought up at preliminary. I'm finding it very frustrating and confusing. Based on South Weaver City R zone or R7 zone, the following should apply to this development. Building height shall not exceed 35 feet. What is presented in the plans tonight shows 38. The staff memo also says 38. What rules? The overall density at R7 is 7 units per acre at, and I found 3 different acreage designations on the agenda, on the development agreement, and on the packet. I've got 2.914, I've got 2.198, and 3.175. I feel at this point, at a final review, we should know what that acreage is. And that needs to be consistent across all of the documents. It's not. Maximum number of units per building is set at 4 per our city code. You have two buildings with 5 units each. Setbacks for 25 feet from the front of a public sidewalk. You've offered 10. From the very start of my time on the planning commission, I have been told repeatedly that the parameters of my comments and input need to be based on what exists within our city code and the general plan. But personal opinions, preferences do not carry any weight. So why are we going outside of the boundaries of our appointed duties for this development when we don't do it on any others? We just had 3 previous rezone requests come in front of us with a preliminary and some with a final rolled into one. Did we go outside of the specifications on the code for any of them? I, for one, would like to see what an actual R7 development would look like, but instead we've been given a development proposal based on a zoning density that does not even exist in our city code. This puts the commission in a position of offering personal opinions, and that is not my understanding of our current role and responsibility as planning commissioners and a recommending body. Finally, adding in that I would like to have a reverter clause or any appropriate language added to the development agreement, that if this does not get built, that the R7 rezone will then stay with the land and not revert back to the CO zoning. And those are my comments.
If I can help address some of your concerns there, Commissioner Lucy, the reason why there's a lot of things that are fall outside of the code is because of the development agreement. That development agreement allows them to have exceptions to the general code. So when the city council approved the development agreement, that becomes the law by which they have to develop the property, not our city code anymore.
But are we not amending the development agreement?
The development agreement is already set based on what the city council.
So the city council hasn't approved the development agreement, but the planning commission recommended approval of the development agreement at the last meeting. And so based on that recommendation, that development agreement is a site-specific zoning document. And so that is the zone is the R7 zone based on recommendation of the planning commission with this development agreement attached to it, that has provisions within it to allow for some alterations of that code, allowing for the density of up to 35 units, allowing for the height to be 38 feet, allowing for the setbacks to be 10 feet on all sides, and so forth. And so that's what we are looking at the final plat based on that development agreement. Understand the development agreement still needs the approval of the city council, but as the body that made the recommendation, you in good faith make a recommendation on this final plat based on what was recommended for the development agreement at the preliminary stage.
And then,
So Trevor, may I ask a question real quick, Commissioner Davis?
yeah, go ahead.
So I appreciate that explanation, but I'm still a little confused why we're continuing with the process when the development agreement hasn't been approved yet. That it just seems a little premature. And I understand we approved it or recommend approval. I understand, we did that in good faith, but it just seems odd to me from a process standpoint that we're proceeding as if it's been approved, but it has not been approved.
Right. However, we follow the process, the development process through the preliminary and the final stage to allow for the city council to use their legislative authority on the final development. And so the final stage will include the final plat, the development agreement, the rezone, all at the same time. How we're ordering that is that the development agreement will run first, then the rezone will run after that, and then the city council will consider the final plat. And so based on their approval or action on the development agreement, then that will cascade down into those other options. It's very typical in this process because we're creating a site-specific zoning document to follow that through all the way until the end of the final stage with the city council. You can do it separately, but it can tend to muddy things up because you're designing the project already in the development agreement. And so with that design already in hand, we've moved those forward so that we're not wasting city council's time, planning commission's time, and staff's time on doing multiple processes.
That's understandable. I appreciate that explanation. Thank you.
When did it get changed to 38 though? Because I remember it being 35 in the previous discussions, and I feel like the 38 is a new number. Is that just my recollection? Okay. That's fair.
Were there questions specifically that you had for the developer, or did you want them to try to address their questions that they?
It feels like he's had enough chance to review the questions that were brought up during public comment. I'm fine here.
I'm not sure, what, I don't have time to review this right now, just in front of me, but what I will say is the development agreement and the preliminary plan have been approved, and I believe our civil engineer has designed plats that are commensurate and substantially similar to the approval plan, and it would fall within the approved development agreement.
Trevor, I remember when we were originally talking about the developer agreement, we had talked about instituting some kind of a reverter clause. I know that came up. Why didn't? I know we didn't necessarily go with that, right?
I have a question on that comment on the reverter clause. Are you referring to the rezone to revert? Can you just clarify what you're meaning by the reverter? Are you wanting the development agreement to go away? Are you wanting the rezone? I was a little confused.
Well, and that's where I guess I'm not sure the appropriate point to interject that, because is it something that needs to be in the development agreement, which is obviously part of our packet, and that has impact on the final plat? So where does it go? Where does a reverter, because if the development agreement becomes our controlling document that is now superseding our city code, if this development does not happen as planned and presented and approved, if it goes through, city council, that land has been requested to be rezoned to R7 from a commercial overlay zone. And that recommendation is, I believe, going to city council as being recommended for approval unanimously. So I guess that's how does that happen if something fails here? Or fails with.
The CO zone is going away, is my understanding. So if you make another application in 5-6 years from now, when this thing expires, there is no CO zone to apply under, so.
Right, so there's, like I said, there's multiple parts to this. There's the development agreement, the rezone, and then the development itself. The rezone, when we've used reverter clauses in the past, it's, say it's an agricultural zone, and we're gonna grant a rezone to R7 on that agricultural zone. We have in the past put a reverter clause saying if the development doesn't go through, or if X, Y, and Z don't have it happen, then the zoning designation goes back to the agricultural. So it reverts back to the original zone. In this case, when we consider the rezone, the city council considers the rezone, if they grant, let's just hypothetically, if they deny the development agreement and the development, but approve the rezone, then that's the zone. Does that make sense? The rezone is contingent on that approval, not contingent on approval of the development agreement. Development agreement just says that they're gonna apply for a rezone, and they have done that. So, not saying the council's gonna deny everything, that was just a hypothetical example. But it's a standalone item, so the land will be rezoned to R7 or the R5 SG if the council chooses to use the new zoning designation that's available.
That makes sense. No, I have one. If you want me to. For the landscaping plans, I know one of the biggest issues that was discussed was the sight lines and the sight triangles. And I know per our landscaping code is that trees are being required along that park strip on 2700 East. I'm just, again, I have concerns. They've been expressed previously, maybe ad nauseum, but especially for that entrance that's to the south, that's going to be pretty steep, that doesn't appear to have any kind of a landing. If there's also that additional,
There's no trees.
There are no trees.
there are no trees,
There's
okay.
no trees in the-
No trees in the park strip? Okay, thank you. That was something I was not clear on. And then the irrigation plan for that detention basin area, I didn't see that on the previous, on the preliminary, and I don't see it now on the final. So how do we know if that detention basin, the landscaping, and how it's going to be irrigated? Is there a plan in place?
Yeah, the irrigation plan is part of the improvement plans for the final, and that's been reviewed by Brandon, and that has been.
They still need to supply that, the irrigation part of that.
Okay, so we don't have that, so that is not complete at this point.
It's in the package. It's in the Dropbox, so.
I see the irrigation plan. For the detention basin.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is there,
Yes.
so we're good, okay.
Sorry.
Now, I just want to make sure, because we're at final, so at this point, everything should be done.
We're good.
Thank you for moving the dog park. There was something else. Sorry, give me just a second if somebody else wants to weigh on something. Oh, I found it. So that additional parcel that's located on the, southeast corner that I guess is owned by
City.
the city, UDOT, did UDOT give it to the city?
No, we gave it to the city.
You gave it to the city or
It was a
whoever owns it?
leftover parcel, but yeah.
Okay,
Brandon, you want to explain that a little bit more?
Sure, when, I believe this is what occurred, when UDOT came in and did the improvements along 89, removed access and built the frontage road, they had to acquire certain properties. Well, the subdivision that previously existed had some lots that along Deer Run, that portions were acquired for that. And I think that it was discovered by their surveyor, I think at some point, that what they were actually showing was already a parcel that was,
I think there was an overlap,
yeah,
and so we just quick claimed it back to the city, so there's no title.
right. So that's just cleaning up the property. My only comment is just that they still need to landscape that area.
And we updated the landscape plan to show that.
okay, because that, I know before it wasn't included in that,
Yeah,
so,
we've got it. It's there.
okay.
Yeah.
And again, irrigation and taking care of it, so it doesn't become tumbleweeds.
Yes.
Right, and if you'll notice in the maintenance agreement, that the purpose of that maintenance agreement, there's an exhibit on there that shows all of the landscaping, including park strips and all of that. So it should be very clear what they're responsible for. That's the purpose of that agreement.
I'm fine with that, and I think referencing, what was that, on page, the ownership and maintenance of infrastructure and landscaping, page 1 of 11. Again, that's just one of those areas where the acreage, that was the one that came up with the 3.175. Just, can we get that?
Which page of the,
Page 1 of 11, but it's page 44 of the packet.
okay, that's what I'm.
Yeah, go 44 of the packet.
So the 3.176 is what is listed on the county.
Okay,
There is dedications that happen outside of that from the project. And then, and they get a survey. The county is notorious about finding and giving away land magically out of these, like, I don't understand that because they're never absolutely correct. So that's why we're trying to survey. And so that's why you see, and then there's the difference because there's the detention basin and then there's the rest of the project. And sometimes those are listed as separate on the calculations as well. Does that make sense? So I understand it's very confusing, but on the things that matter is the plats, all the plat designations in the boundary line are all correct.
okay. And that with each of the phasing, I saw that there was different designations of the acreage for each phase, and it did all total up to that 3.76.
Right. Trevor, let me add also their surveyor, as he was cleaning that up. It's my understanding what he provided us with a legal description of the cleaned up property. And it was my understanding that the 3.175 reflects that the surveyed total acreage.
Is it 3.175 or 3.176? Because we both said both, and I know in the development agreement, it says 3.175.
We can double
So,
check
we
that,
just
but
double check that.
in the maintenance agreement and in the development agreement, it will reference the legal description created by their surveyor.
And that's the one that was dated April 2023, correct? That's included in the packet.
That's what should govern, because that is the professional who is stamping that this is how much property is there.
Any other questions?
None at the moment.
Any additional questions for the developer or overall?
Well, I think we had a couple that wanted to come back after I brought stuff.
I don't have any further.
Commissioner Stoll?
Yeah, I just had, I mean, just to comment on the rental part, I mean, I think we went through that quite a bit last time. And I mean, my understanding is that you have no intention of wanting to rent it, but if it wasn't allowed to rent, then we risk the project not getting finished if for some reason you didn't sell enough units, and now we're stuck with a partially finished project, which nobody wants. I mean, if we're gonna start a project, we for sure don't want it just not finished, so. I feel like I'm fairly clear, and I think it's probably a little open-ended, but I think that the goal is to not have rentals, so I think that we went over that enough last time, that I feel pretty comfortable with what the verbiage is, and I don't know how much more specific you can get just based on when a certain amount does not decide to sell compared to when other ones would be selling more, right? So, yeah, just to answer the question that was listed in there.
It's number 2 for reference on
Yeah,
that
number
handout.
2,
There was 4 sub questions on that.
but and then I think that we're covered by anything too crazy happening, because we talked about that, you guys sure, because of the short-term rental that's in the code, right, it kind of protects us from anything crazy like that. Yeah, and then just agreeing with changing the terminology for canal. We got the name correct on that, but other than that, I didn't really have any other questions.
Yeah, Brandon, did we get that letter, the approval letter from the WCD
Yes.
or CC? Sorry if I got the letters wrong.
Well, let me just
CWCD.
add a little clarity to that, hopefully. The name of the company is the Davison Weaver Counties Canal Company. DWCCC. However, in all of their communications, they refer to themselves as DWC. So.
They're keeping you on your toes.
The actual legal name, we can double check to make sure that whichever one it is, we'll go in there.
Their letterhead says DWC. All their signature blocks say DWC. Rick's DWC.
Yes. I'm sure it's because it gets a little annoying to all the letters, right? But that's the full name of the company. So frequently, that's the way I refer to them, but they always refer to themselves as DWC.
Are the parties referenced in the draft version of the amended and reinstated development agreement, starting on page 65? Because I noticed in the previous draft, we actually said who the developer was, who the utilities were, it said exactly who everybody's referencing in the agreement. I don't see that in the draft version. I'm just missing it.
In the development agreement,
Yes.
I don't believe
Like the
there's any
parties
reference to Davison Weaver.
Oh, maybe it's only in the maintenance agreement.
Yeah.
that it's needed.
And they're not a signing party, they're just referenced because.
Referencing in the contract who
Yes.
is going to be responsible for, whatever. Okay.
Right.
No, that answers that question.
And then just last, I mean, I disagree with the 35 last time, but I was under the impression that this city council had, so that had been already granted and in writing and stamped and whatever else, right?
So the 35 units, is that what you're referring to? Yes, so in the initial conversation and negotiation. So background on the development agreement. The the development was proposed by the developer to the city council and requested to go through a development agreement process. We then met as a development agreement committee with the developer to formulate a draft development agreement. That development agreement then was brought back to the city council as this is the draft we're gonna move forward with. Is there any major concerns or comments? In that conversation, the number of 35 units as the total number of units that they would, the cap that they would feel comfortable with would be that 35 units. However, that's not an approval at that point. It was just the verbal confirmation of the council. That's what we're willing to work with on this draft agreement. Please send it through the planning commission for their recommendation. Planning commission gave recommendation and then they'll get that to the city council. So there's no approval yet on any numbers or anything for sure. This is verbally, and in those meeting minutes, this is what we would feel comfortable this time. But they always have the legislative purview to change that when they do their.
And it should be noted, it said up to 35. It didn't establish 35 as the total number of units, which I think still gives us a little bit of input in terms of the total number of units, so.
That's all I have. Commissioner Boatright, any additional comments?
No, we hashed this out pretty good during our last meeting and again, despite personal opinions, the development agreements, the guiding document in this case, and if that's what the city council wants, then and if people don't like it, well, an election's coming up, so.
With 3 open city council seats. Submit your application by what date, Mayor?
June the 1st.
June the 1st. Good notice. I just had one more quick question, and it's on the elevations that were submitted in the packet. This is actually what's going to be, because I know the previous renderings was based off of a development that was in North Salt Lake.
Yeah, we're gonna give them a facelift and congruent with
Okay.
the parameters in the development agreement.
Okay.
This is a little dated, so we want
Update them a
Yeah.
little bit. Is that gonna be something that the city council will see when they're considering this, or is this?
Yeah, the city council will see that as a part of the development agreement. The development agreement, those are basically the development agreement says the development will be substantially similar to the following design that's included as an exhibit. It's not the currently architectural design, but in the past, on architectural review, we have allowed developers to give an example of what their finishes will look like. And the ability for the planning commission to weigh on those materials and the approval of that materials. And so in the development agreement, though, it does specifically say that it'll be substantially similar to the following, including the 4 sides of wainscoting and
that sort of thing's no problem.
Right.
4 sides.
Yeah, we want to update them for sure.
Yeah, we talked about the color and, yeah, we talked about all that, sure.
hot pink, right?
We're not
White.
gonna crazy stuff.
Do, for the keys.
Those are natural colors in the inside.
By the way, for the rest of your team, this is not serious. Do not want that as fact.
Any other comments one last time? If not, I'll look for a motion. Everyone's scared.
No, I'm just double checking, written down. No, because I think we've got just going through all the things, I think we figured out the administrative error that was calling it a final subdivision plat, which it's not, it's the final, or
It's final plat.
yeah. No, this is just the plat, not the development agreement, or they're tied together.
This is just the plat. You've already done your recommendation.
We're on the development agreement.
Right.
Okay. Just again for clarification's sake. My only other comment on this one is just when we talk about the extenuating circumstances for the rentals, I still think those need to be more clearly defined. But because we talked about it being a military service or the ecclesiastical service.
It is.
I thought we did that, I just couldn't find it. Or maybe I just overlooked it.
It says, members shall be allowed to lease their units until their unit is sold or conveyed to a third party, or upon showing financial hardship such as divorce, illness, or death, loss of job transfer, family growth, military permanent change, station, etc. It's on page 69, 79.
I like that it says to thwart potential vendor. What's a copper thief, by the way?
Well, that's, we've had,
It's a big.
other projects.
That's the people that go on building sites and steal all the copper out of your air conditioning
It's a real deal.
units and everything. Okay,
Running like forklifts through the chain link fence. Yeah.
Crazy.
that's pretty. Okay,
Okay, I move to recommend to the city council approval of the final plat approval for Deer Run Townhomes at approximately 7897 south, 2700 east.
Second that motion.
Okay, all in favor, starting with Commissioner Boyd,
Aye.
Commissioner Schwann,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Lozey.
I'm still a no.
And I am a yes. So that was Pat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item number 8, planning commission comments. Commissioner McFadden, I'll answer.
Yeah.
Come on, I want the front. I'm gonna no for 2 meetings in a row on this. I'm for Tony Margaret.
I don't know that I have any additional comments.
It's not required, so you're fine. Commissioner Stoll.
You don't have to.
I'm still ashamed.
No further comments.
Commissioner Boyd.
Yeah, so as you can tell, I was a little frustrated tonight. Some of the comments some of the public kind of directed blamed us for lots of things that were done in the past. Granted, that was a planning commission, but it wasn't us. I also take exception that the one comment that we don't do our job well. We're all volunteers. And we are also citizens of this community who love this community just as much as those sitting on the other side of the table. And it's not easy. I'm the longest tenured of this group. I've only been doing it for 3 or 4 years, I think. And there's been some harsh criticisms thrown our way, which are unfair and and not true. And I know most everybody has left the meeting who made some comments, but just a reminder that we all live in the same neighborhood. We all want the best for the city. We as a commission are doing our best. For the most part, none of us are developers or planners. I know Commissioner McFadden though is in that business, but we all just volunteered because we wanted to serve our community, and none of us have any agendas except to do the best that we can and to serve our community the best that we can. And like many of the residents, we have concerns. We also have strong opinions, but some as a commissioner, sometimes we are bound. We are bound by what we can and can't do. And I wish we could vote based on our opinion 100% of the time, but we can't. So I wish people would understand that more, that we're all on the same team and all want the same thing, and that is the best for this community. So I thank my fellow commissioners. I apologize I'm not there with you. I also thank staff. They also get a lot of grief as well, and also the city council as well. And again, if people don't like how things are done, there are elections coming up, and you're encouraged to run. And then it might open people's eyes to just how difficult it is. So I'll get off my soapbox now, and thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Thank you, Commissioner Laura, that, you kind of took the words out of my mouth as well. I was gonna make a mention of something very similar about, you know, what we can and can't do. Commissioner Wilson, you mentioned that earlier. It's a learning curve for us all, and I agree with you. I agree with Commissioner Boatright that it would do the community a huge favor for everyone to rotate through this position to get a better understanding of what it's all about, because I think a lot of eyes would be opened on what is possible and what's allowed and what restrictions are in place and what we can or can't do, et cetera. Anyway, so thank you for saying that. I agree 100%. And I'll try to manage things on in here a little bit better because it got a little crazy there for a second.
Hey, you
I
had to
guess
use the gavel. That was pretty awesome. First time, huh?
Twice, it was really uncomfortable. But I try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt without, you know, completely being a Gestapo here. So that's part of my hesitation is I don't want to be some jerk running the gavel or anything. So I do give a lot of leniency, and I appreciate everyone who gives me little nudges in my ear. So I appreciate that. So thank you for everyone who participates on that end with me, and I'll continue to do better there and make it not so awkward. But go ahead. Did you have anything?
Well, unless you don't want me to comment.
Go ahead.
I only have one thing I agree with you, Gary. Thank you for saying that. By the way, looking at this little owl speaker, I feel like I got two eyes. Gary. It's no point of reference, but you basically are looking through this little speaker. No, this was not an easy meeting. It's hard to sometimes take somebody's very personal, and I get that they're passionate about what they're trying to inform the public on. But again, we are a recommending body. We're not the legislative body, and unfortunately, the mayor and the city council get to bear the brunt of that passion sometimes. But I would love for people to step on our shoes and really try to understand the process, because we do try to take into account everything that gets said, but we still have to operate within the purview of our city code and our general plan. That's it. Those are our frameworks. There was one other item, and this is more of I forgot to add on the consent agenda that we were just missing one of the meeting attendees from the last planning commission meeting, and I don't know if that's something that we can add in. Joseph Cook was not listed as an attendee and being the developer who presented at that meeting. I feel like he needed to be added in as one of the attendees.
It's something that just is a substance of edit, but it's just.
Okay.
Lots of times what happens is they don't sign in.
And I hope everybody that came tonight and gave public comment also signed in, and I don't know if maybe we need to do a reminder, just as kind of a meeting, you know. Hey, everybody, if you're here, please sign in just so we can capture you for being in attendance. And that's it.
I did want to take just a second to report out on code committee. This is something that I wanted to make sure that everyone was informed on. So just so that you're aware, we tightened up the conditional use permit section. We're expecting that'll come before this body in June for review and approval. So that's exciting. I think we made some really good changes in it. So I know, super exciting. There are several other things that are being, can I talk about this? Okay. So we are put on the list for the PUDs to be reviewed. There was recent changes from the state to adjust our code title 10 and 11, getting rid of some ambiguity that's currently there. So that'll be good, but that'll be a lot of work. So that's on the list. And then we also are aware that we are out of compliance from the state on street widths. So that's going to have to be reviewed again. I know we just did that, but apparently it's not in compliance with state requirements.
Brandon, jump in.
That was just barely passed.
Yes.
And,
Thank you, 0 time.
I actually put that in on that committee with the developers who were pushing that. We had discussions about how much time it would take for cities to be able to adjust their standards to comply. I swear we agreed to like January of 24, But I'd ask Jamie, I'm looking through the state code and I cannot see that what actually got put in allows for
Time.
any time.
I was under the understanding it was June or January or whatever of 2024. Is it immediately?
Well, it's May 3rd.
That's what it says in that section, but the whole bill referenced like, I don't know, 10, 12, something different sections. So I guess when you say we're out of compliance, I think it just makes me cringe this one, because we are well aware that we need to address that, and it will come to you.
In June, correct?
Well,
Or do we know when?
As soon as we can.
Meeting of the minds with you and Jamie and Trevor.
yeah, Brandon, Jamie, and Jamie, our city attorney, and myself have a powwow this Monday to talk about all of the state laws that we have to come in compliance with, as well as a smattering of other things, but, yeah, it'll, like Brandon said, that is a lengthy process, because it could involve updates to our general plan, it could involve updates to other things we have laid out, and so it's not just an easy, like, just change 36 to 32 and you're good. And so, yes, so, however, when we say that we're out of compliance, it just means that we're a subdivision of the state, right? So we have to comply with state law until we can update our code. That's all that.
I have a question.
I triggered everybody with the image. We are trying to make the best we can. I wanted to make that as a clarification, because I want everybody to know that we're well aware and we're taking care of it, but we want to do it in a responsible way so that it there's not repercussions that we regret later.
Can you give just the top 2 reasons why the state was so adamant that these changes needed to be made and designate it to the specific municipalities?
Specifically on like the street width?
Yep.
Well,
Why do they care?
I will say that in my exposure to, I think what they want to accomplish is when I say they, I mean, the Home Builders Association generally, across the state. Those who are a part of that want to have statewide standards. So they can go to any city and basically do the same thing anywhere that they want. Now, I might be speaking too freely here, but I think it's important that you understand that their first proposal was 25. And we, I guess through discussions and trying to help understand like why that would be too narrow as the standard. They were willing to put in the bill 32. That was the most that we could negotiate. There are a lot of caveats to that would allow for a road to be larger than 32 if certain conditions exist. And so what we'll need to make sure we're doing is that in our standards, we will be referencing the code, and we will be talking about if we feel like there's a need for something larger than 32, then there would be the reasons why we feel that is justified.
The caveats.
Yes, and then that would come before you as the recommending body, that would then go to the city council for approval. So it's just asphalt width.
And that, I was gonna ask,
It
is
is
that
not
asphalt
right,
width,
it's not right of way.
not gutters, not curbs, not sidewalks, not anything
No.
like that?
No, I suspect that you'll see things in the future that way, but we're trying to serve the citizens the best we can. We appreciate that. Thank you very much, Ben. Sure.
Yeah, so I have a few things. I'm trying to get this on your radar super early because it's actually a really good opportunity. The fall 2023 conference for the American Planners Association of Utah, APAUT.
Yeah.
So the American Planners Association, American Planners Association is actually going to be in Ogden this fall. And so we don't have to drive all the way to Thanksgiving Point or wherever we want to take. It's actually in Ogden.
Where?
So you get an all expenses paid training in Ogden.
Mileage.
So that is September 28th and 29th. So if those are hard for you, but if they're not, if you don't have anything on your calendars, please look for those dates. I may not be there because my wife is due in September.
So you said September 28th and 29th?
So, yeah, September 28th and 29th.
Okay, this is the 20th and the 29th, not the 30th.
I just about baseball. This is a really great opportunity. It is based on that.
Excuses, this is continuing education.
Hey,
This is the
The
requirement.
nice thing is that Commissioner Skull is already done with his training, because he had to do it prior to his ability to vote.
He's like, I'm out.
But it is a really great opportunity to learn pretty in-depth things about planning.
If I can just say real quick to back that up, I was very skeptical last year. I was like, oh, this is gonna be a waste of 2 days. But I learned a ton of stuff. So, and there were some really good presentations there from other mayors that I found just absolutely fascinating. So, believe it or not, it doesn't sound like it'd be that exciting, but it actually was actually very nice. So just that what you're saying, I am absolutely gonna go this year. I think it's gonna be great. And if you have the ability to go, I would highly recommend it. Just from the perspective of, you're gonna be around a lot of other planners, a lot of mayors, a lot of city councilmen. Like, there's gonna be a lot of people there that you can, like, yeah, and you can glean a lot of stuff from, and they're all going through similar stuff that we go through, so it's nice to be able to relate and kind of talk to some of their folks. So just, that's my 2 cents. Sorry.
Just out of curiosity, do you know the location, Egyptian Theater?
Yeah, that's the Ogden Eccles Common Center, so Egyptian Theater, that
Area.
area. So. Right by Slackwater, right by the Great Place. Great place. Go to Ramen House.
Sold. Done.
So I will see if I'm there.
So when you say all expenses paid, does that mean our lunches?
Your
No,
breakfast and lunch will be provided.
is it really?
Yes.
Oh, that's right, they did.
Yeah.
Breakfast and lunch and snacks will be provided there.
We had unlimited soda last time. I was dangerous.
It was at the movie theater. The very first day, was giant, oh, it was ridiculous. I was like, nobody needs that much soda in a single setting.
So just let me know that registration is open for that right now. I'm trying to be better. Last year I gave you like a month in advance. This is like 4 months.
So is there a link that you're gonna send us?
Just let me know and I'll pay it on the city credit card. Okay.
Okay. I'll be there.
Trevor?
That's scary.
What are those dates again?
September 28th and 29th.
Okay,
It will satisfy all training requirements.
And it'll be fun.
And it's
And I know I said I had no comment earlier, but when there's a second, I decided I have one.
Sure. Okay. I have one more thing. It deals with what I forgot your name. I feel like that's payback. Well, that's payback. Karen Davis was talking about on the updates to Title 10 and Title 11. This is going to be a substantial rewrite of our development process. The state code, they actually gave us a whole year to work on this. That's nice. But we have to update our preliminary process and our final process, stripping out as much legislative items in there, and they're wanting it to be a purely administrative process as much as possible. And any legislative items we handle prior to going through that administrative process, right? So an example of a legislative item in the administrative process is our buffer yard exemptions for commercial. That is a total call out to the city council. They can do whatever they want on the buffer yard. That's a legislative decision in the administrative process. They wanted us to pull that out and either define that better in our code or give good administrative parameters on what the planning commission can improve. The code is wanting in the preliminary stage, it all to be at the planning commission, the land use authority. You are the administrative approval on that. And then it encourages cities to have the final process be staff driven. And purely administrative. So we take what was approved at the preliminary stage, and that's what we base any staff approvals on, is what your approvals are. I know that sounds scary and whatnot. We'll work through all of those details.
It's not
Brandon,
scary, it's just how is that gonna work?
it's not scary necessarily. It is maybe head scratching. I'm like, that's odd. Other portion, it is public hearings and when and where and how to hold the public hearings. The state code only requires us to hold public hearings on very few items as a requirement. Like a rezone is a required public hearing, but a conditional use is a public hearing that can be had if the city deems it necessary, or it can just be a purely administrative item. Just inside my brain, I like conditional use public hearings as long as we frame them correctly, right? Because it just, there's things that residents know about their neighborhood that we don't know, right? But yeah, so it is a very in-depth conversation. We're gonna talk about it for the next like 6 months, but it'll be so good.
A repeating agenda items.
It will be, yeah, once we get some details down in our what did I label it? It was land use and sundry items or something like that. Meeting on Monday, we will have a better direction on what's going on.
And there was a desire, I'm not sure if we're gonna do this, but it sounded like there was a desire to piecemeal that through so we can get rid of some ambiguity a little chunk at a time as we.
Yeah, we're gonna try to figure out the best logical way to get it moved through, so we don't have a complete rewrite of Title 10 all at the same time and say, congratulations, guys, let's go through this page by page for all of the 20 sections in this. It can be a lot. We need to kind of scope it and see what the workload's gonna be.
Great.
General plan survey. When is it? Oh, no.
General plan, if we were to update it according to the 5-year schedule, then we would be looking at opening that up next year.
Okay.
2024,
2024.
end of 2020.
There are items that we are required to update through state code in our general plan, like water use in our general plan. That's required before 2025. And so we are going to be opening it up for that. We've got to talk about what the scope is like on that as well. So lots of little things. This
Yep.
little.
Don't rush that, Marty.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Commissioner Scholl, back to you.
And just add to what Commissioner Boatright, Commissioner Davis said, just choosing to speak on behalf of everybody else. Just to encourage them to continue to keep coming and to just acknowledge that I've always personally lived in fully developed neighborhoods, so I've never had the risk of somebody coming in and changing my way of life as far as roads or traffic or anything else. So I think I understand and can understand where they're coming from and their frustrations and excitement. Even if it was a little out of line and yeah, just to encourage them to keep coming, and I'm sure it's not easy to, especially if you lived there for 40 years and suddenly somebody wants to come in and build and change things. Change is always hard, and so just that I acknowledge that it's probably a little scary, and I'm sure it's not easy to go through, and but yeah, we're here to do our best to ensure that it goes as smoothly as possible and goes with what the code says it can be. So that's all I had.
Thank you. All right, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll take that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.